let's start.
So yeah, so I think here, this is where I live. Well, actually, I try to live in all these, especially number 6 is very important. But the build API, prototype, build, or scale depending on what architecture phase you're on. I don't understand this because this is part I need to ask around in the community, because this is the part that throws me. Okay, prototype. This is what throws me. Okay, you know what? You have a description of API. You can mock that. There's plenty of mocking tools. Swagger does that. Postman does that. You can do code gen and then just deploy your stubs and just you get your basic responses from your models, right? The static response from your model. But then scale depending on what architecture you're facing on. That part confuses me because I'm just here. I'm assuming that I'm just doing the design, or maybe this model, the cycle, saying, you know what, you know what you're going to build. You've decided what you're going to build here already, and maybe, so for example,
It depends on what do they mean by architecture phase.
Yeah.
What are the phases of architecture that we are talking about?
Let's go into it. Let's dig a little deeper. Let me see.
That's minimum viable.
Yeah.
Prototype.
So this is where we are, right? This is it?
No, the next one. We want to go to build, not the minimum viable.
Okay. So we were wondering about this one, right?
No, this is fine.
Okay.
We were on the third one
Okay.
that we were talking about.
Let's see. Go back. Third one.
Right, build APIs.
Okay. Let's compare that. Okay.
Okay, so it is the same thing. Same phases that they talk about. Prototype, build just enough, and scale. Okay.
Right. So that's when okay. I'm trying to.
So prototype is your Swagger spec.
Exactly. Open API with examples, right? Mocking test against the prototype. So.
Okay. That is what mocking you are talking
That's
about.
what I meant.
Not the mocking within the to test the APIs. This is just mock against this API. Okay.
Right. Although, if the testers are probably one that want to get their hands on, if they're doing contract testing and they want to build their test, right? You can test the mock and then swap out for the real backend, and then that should go.
Yeah. Contract testing is basically just going to be about what input and output it gets without data being involved.
Right. So now I'm going, okay, so I usually live in this phase. Something I was getting confused by the architecture, but yeah, so mocking, definitely one of my favorites, exploring this more and then pushing this more. And then of course, give prototype out for comments and building for API consumers. So this sounds obvious, but I don't think it happens enough. We at least where we are, we have to get better at it. But I think there's some progress, definitely some progress there. Build just enough, what we were just talking about. Protect with API management. So we see, for example, here, protect with API management. We don't build proxies at this phase. We basically build them when, say, maybe we do when if this is referring to you have DVL.
No, I think so. This is talking about a truly agile fashion in which even the minimum viable product is deployable. So if you're going to say that my minimum viable product is deployable, then you should be building the API proxies pretty much in the first sprint itself.
Alongside.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or maybe second sprint, because it talks about prototype in the first one.
Yeah, and of course, set up CI/CD pipeline. So.
That is, before you start coding, you should set up your CI/CD pipeline.
Yeah.
You are not going to say, okay, I'm going to design my entire API, I'm going to start coding on it, and then since I need to build, I'll create a CI/CD pipeline, because that would become waterfall rather than agile.
Right. Let's see. Although, I'm wondering if it's easy, if it were that easy to build a pipeline, like for example with Bruce Allen, the JTE, it's so simple to say, okay, this is such a simple step
I mean,
now.
CI/CD is pretty simple. I mean,
Right.
when I built my first API with I created something from Spring Boot, a starter,
Yeah.
and wrote a CI/CD pipeline before I wrote any line of code.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's probably
Right. So it was already building it, and only when the CI/CD pipeline was successful, then I go back in there and make any changes.
So then, looking at the APIOps cycle, this seems a little out of place, right? Because this is this is number 3.
This is number 3, but the API cycle is talking about the first part was your feasibility,
Yeah, the
right?
canvas and all of
The
that.
second one was about architecture, and now this is the third one where you are actually going to create your build.
Right.
And see, the third one, it says you have to continue to prototype. Every time you add a new endpoint, you add a new feature,
Yeah.
you are going to continue to do that. So, I mean, I don't think so. Agile says you can discount the feasibility.
Okay.
So, and minimum architecture is just, again, in line with the principles of agile engineering, where you're saying don't over architect anything.
Right.
Just architect for what you want. So don't say that, okay, in future I'm going to need this API to serve 1,000 people.
Yeah. Right.
Right now you don't need 1,000 people.
Yeah,
Right now it's just you and me consuming it. So let's just build it for that, and then as the need develops, if we have more features, because one endpoint for 100 users is not going to kill the API. You
Right.
don't need to over architect it.
Yeah. So I need to. I think I get this one. Day to day I'm here, but I need to understand this a little bit better. I think I need a little stuff. Sometimes it feels like I'm just going from here, if at all, to here.
Yes.
And then if I'm here,